So nice to meet all of you. Thank you so much for joining. Today we're going to go over how to write a compelling statement of purpose and supplemental essays. And I'd like to give a little introduction, but first here's the agenda. I'm not going to read it out loud, but just so that you can sort of know what we'll be going through today. I tried to break it up. There's a lot of different moving pieces to applying for different programs. I know it can seem overwhelming, so I just wanted to break it down as simply as I possibly could. I've been doing this for about 15 years, helping students get into colleges and graduate school programs. And I think I have it down to a science, so hopefully it will help you. Ali introduced me so nicely, and I appreciate that. I love working for this company. I am based in New York, as she said, and I've taught writing at Columbia University and New York University. My background is in creative and academic writing. I received my Master of Fine Arts in Fiction from NYU, from a program that accepts 12 students a year. I'm only saying that to you guys, not to gloat, but because I think I wrote a really good application package for that, and that really helped me get into that program. And then for the past year and a half, I've also worked as an AI content engineer for Google's Gemini. So I'll briefly discuss the reality of AI in the application landscape as well. And my favorite thing is to help students find their voice and tell their story. So you're here because you've developed a passion for something, and now you want to gain specialization in that passion, and that's a really exciting place to be. So I commend you for getting here. And today I'll walk you through best practices for drafting the application essays for graduate school, from the brainstorming step to research to writing and polishing standout essays. We're going to dive in. Okay, so I would like to pose a question. If you are on the shy side, that's okay. But if you'd like to say a few things or even just one thing, maybe we could dive in together. I'd like to pose the question, when you think about applying to grad schools, what's your biggest fear or stress point? Maybe you could type it in the chat if you don't want to voice it. And then Ali can call any out. I can't see if anyone's typing, but is anyone typing?
They're probably too shy to share, but just keep in mind people can ask me later.
Yeah, and it's just something also for yourself to think about too, because I think if we name the thing that we're stressed out about, then we can tackle it, even if it's in your own mind. So, okay, so your passion. For me, what I think is the most important part of all of this is the step before writing, which is being able to define your passion, and being able to articulate your goals relating to your passion. So I think something that's really important in the application process that can be a little bit different from how schools in East Asia or Southeast Asia function is that it kind of requires you to really think critically and introspectively about your story, like who you are in relation to what you're doing. So I know that can be a little bit intimidating because I've worked with a lot of students from East Asia, and I know that it's a hurdle you can all overcome. So we have to think about your passion in micro terms, like the specific details of it, and then macro terms, like how it relates to the field as it is now in our current time in history, in our social, economical, political climate. So to be able to discuss your passion is the most important thing, like the roots of it, how you've cultivated it, like what you've done in relation to it, what you plan to do with it, why it matters in today's world, what makes you unique, and why a school would be lucky to have you as an alumnus or alumna. And then moving on from that, and in relation to that, what admissions committees are looking for, and some of this might be self-explanatory, so bear with me, but a fit is really important. The program, the faculty, mission, authenticity, like your authentic voice. They don't want you to be a robot. They want to know who you are. Preparedness, so academic preparedness, professional preparedness, that you've done your research on the field and also on the schools you're applying to. Character and growth, like your resilience, your curiosity, your empathy, whatever hallmark qualities you have that people notice about you. You can even ask your friends or family members, like, if you had to describe me in 3 words, what would those words be? And then you can kind of go from there. And also your contribution, what you bring to your group, your cohort, your unique perspectives, your backgrounds, your languages. I feel like Western schools really care about that. They care about like what you bring to the table to the student body, and also to like the academic field as well. And your essays, the best way to make all of this come to life, because they don't get to meet you right away, right? They meet you on paper first. Okay. So I think of the application as a story. So I think of it as a narrative package. The big questions are why you, why now, and why here? Like why that school? And your job is to make the admissions committee feel like they're in a room with you without you actually being in that room. So again, the essay is where your personality shines through. Okay, so the brainstorming, a lot of people are just dive right into writing without necessarily having pre-writing strategies. And I think that's a mistake, because I think a lot of the really magical, important writing comes from brainstorming and pre-writing strategies. So I think it's really important to start early. I have had students come into me in the past, like a week before the essays are due, and they're like, oh, I'm applying to 12 schools. Here's all of my essays. I'm done with them. But they were nowhere close to being done, and they were scrambling at the end. So I think it's really nice to be strategic and to give yourself like an easy time by planning ahead. So the first thing is brainstorming. I like to create a good structure, because a good structure means a good essay. So I outline my essay before I write it usually. I can go into like a little bit more of how I usually do that. I'll explain it. And then I write first and then polish. I really literally don't think about what I'm writing until after I've written it, in the sense that I will have a prompt. It's like, why do I care about this field? And then I'll set a timer for like 10 minutes or 15 minutes, and I'll just write it. So I'll go into that a little bit more in the tips, but the guiding questions, and these can be your actual prompts that you ask yourself and then write based on these prompts. Why this field? Why this program? Why me? Why now? And then you list turning points in your life. Identify 3 or 4 moments that changed or solidified your direction, inspired you, or challenged you. And I think in stories, not lists. They don't want you to regurgitate your resume. They have access to that. They don't need that. They want to understand the story behind your resume. So the way to do that, the way to make a story come alive, is through specificity, through details. So zoom in on specific moments, because that makes you bloom on the page. Another thing is, like I said before, free writing without editing. 10 minutes, 15 minutes, whatever time you want to set for yourself. Writing, no editing, just ideas. A big thing that people get hung up on, I've seen it 100,000 times, is thinking about the word count. They're like, oh, I don't have space to write anymore because I'm already over the word count, but they haven't covered all of the bases yet. That's a mistake. I often write like 1,000 words, and then I cut it down to 500, 600. It's a lot harder to write fewer words to cut. So like those supplements, it's like, oh, it's so easy. It's only 250 words. Guess what? It's much harder to write those things that are 250 words, because it doesn't mean it has to be fewer ideas. It means that you have to be able to pack in those ideas seamlessly in 250 words. So leave time for your supplements for sure. Also brainstorm through multiple lenses: academic, professional, and personal experiences that have shaped your path. So that, because we're not just who we are in our academic self, and we're not just who we are in our professional or our personal selves to our friends. We have to kind of relay who we are in a 3-dimensional way. And that is related to the AI part that I'll go over later as well. And I would define your hallmark values. As I said before, you could ask friends or you could think about it yourself. But for each anecdote, jot down what it says about you. Does this show my perseverance, my empathy, my leadership? Like, what is a quality about myself that I really particularly love and would also serve me well in my field? Think forward, connect to your goals at each part of the essay. And I'll explain how to do that within the essay itself when we go over the essay later. Really important part is also infusing personality. I think what happens a lot is people are like, oh, this is academic, so I have to be super professional. But yes, I do think that you have to be professional, right? But at the same time, while you can be professional by writing full sentences and by punctuating correctly and by not using conjunctions, so say do not rather than don't, things like that. But don't cut your humor or your honesty or your voice. It's very important to have a voice in all of this. And sometimes a small anecdote, like a late night lab struggle or a comment that a mentor made, can shape your path. It doesn't have to be this thing of like, oh, I was walking, I had this incredible moment and suddenly it all dawned on me and I knew what I wanted to do and I decided then and there that I was going to be a chemist. Like, it doesn't have to be such a big moment. It can just be a little thing. It could be a big thing, but it can also be a little thing. Don't discount those moments. Okay, so I would like to take a few minutes now so we can all kind of think about the information. I just gave you a lot of information. I know it's a lot to digest. So maybe we can pause for a minute and write down, do a little bit of a writing exercise. Bear with me. If you could locate a pen and a piece of paper, that would be great. You don't have to share these. I'll give you a second to do that. This exercise is about showing and not telling. And I want to show you the difference of that. So here's two parts right now, and then we'll go into the writing thing, is the difference of showing versus telling. The first part says, I knew I wanted to be a nurse because I am a compassionate person and I care about people. Okay, so that's telling. It doesn't make me feel connected to that person. It makes me feel like I'm getting a list of their qualities. Whereas the other one, it's showing. When I held a patient's hand as she waited for test results, she whispered, thank you for not leaving me alone. That moment showed me the power of presence in nursing. Do you see the difference? That's an action. That's like allowing you to say the same things that you're a compassionate person, care about people, without actually using the word. So an exercise I like to do in general is, if I'm talking about my perseverance, how can I illustrate that without ever using the word perseverance? Like, how can I show that in action? It's really important because every essay needs to start with a hook, like a story or a scene, and not a telling moment where it's like, oh, I'm a really thoughtful person and I did this, or I'm a really conscientious person, so when I was doing my math problem, I double check. Like, it's not about telling something, it's about showing it in action. Like, how would you describe it to a person who was blind? What does it look like? What does it feel like? What does it taste like? What's the room like? Describe it. Okay, so if we could take just 2 minutes to write down one moment that made you want to pursue your field. Again, it doesn't have to be full sentences. It can just be something for you to have now, so that when we're done with the session, you can have a piece of paper that you've already thought about, one moment that made you want to go into the field that you're in. And Ollie, feel free to jump in if you think I'm taking too long with asking this question.
No, I think it's perfectly fine. Yeah.
Okay.
No worries.
And again, it's not to share, so really don't be shy about it. It's really just for you to have to help yourself.
I think maybe we can carry on to share, yeah, what Naomi thinks the feedback. Yeah.
Okay, so we're going to break down the essay. The first part that's the most important is having a strong opening. Start with a strong hook or an anecdote. An anecdote is a short, very short story that illustrates why you got into the field or why that field is important to you. You really only have one chance to impress the admissions committee, and this is your opportunity. It's within the first 2 sentences. Either you snooze or you lose. And then the middle part is state your passion and provide evidence of preparation. Again, you don't restate or list the CV, but you describe like why you're ready and what you've done. And then the closing is long-term goals, program fit, and macro zoom out view. And I'll show you what that means a little bit later, but like an example of that would be if you are studying social entrepreneurship, let's say, or like business, and you've talked a lot about your passion for business, you showed that through an anecdote, you described what you've done to prepare, and then you describe your long-term goals, the program fit, etc. And then you want to zoom out of it by describing like why social entrepreneurship or business is important in today's world, specifically what you hope to do with it in relation to like a complex global problem. And that does require some thought. They really want to see, admissions committees really want to see critical thinking, like that you understand your place in the field and in the world. So that's important. Every sentence should count. So by the end, like in the beginning, you don't think about each sentence, but by the end, after the editing stage, many stages, like I would say a few edits, every sentence should count. And it does take a few edits, I find, to get something really good. Okay, so here's some common prompts and strategies. I don't necessarily need to read all of them, but these are the ones that come up over and over and over again. And they are, why do you want to pursue graduate study in this field? What strengths do you bring to the program? How does our program align with your academic and professional goals? How will you contribute to the diversity of perspectives in our program? Okay, so the pro tip is that admissions committees often, as you can see from this, ask the same questions in different forms. So if you can answer these 4 questions, you'll be in great shape. And they are, we've done this before on the other slide, but why this field, why this program, why you, why now? You can start with that, with those 4 prompts, write those out. Don't worry about where they're going to go right away. You'll be in pretty good shape. And the strategies for those are why this program, research specifics. I do so much research on each school. I look at the program. I go on subreddit boards. I go on Reddit boards. I ask students who are there. I ask faculty members. I am not shy about asking like a real life experience of what it's like to be on that campus in that program, because I want to be able to understand it inside out. Without it, I don't know how to write about it. So that's important. Like research is important. And then describe a challenge. So reflection, resilience, and then future goals. Think about your future goals, both in concrete and visionary terms. So like the practical steps of, oh, after grad school, I want to apply for this kind of job, or I want to work in this kind of setting. But then also like why you want to work in that setting. Again, back to why is it important in this world? And then something for you to think about on your own is, what do you think makes for a successful essay? And which part of writing an essay feels the hardest to you? Is it starting, organizing, or editing? Okay, and this is my master list of elements of a strong essay. again, I'm repeating the same things, some of them over again, because it's really important to kind of drill that in, which is start with a strong anecdote and hook that illustrates you in action, putting your subject to use. Connect the anecdote to your current passion / why you're applying. So that could be literally paragraph 1 and paragraph 2. And then very importantly, I often find students writing about like different topics within each paragraph, but it's actually really easy to do it this way from the beginning, which is that you group ideas into their own paragraphs. So paragraphs are islands, and each idea has to stay in its own island. So like the beginning might be your anecdote and your hook. So that's one island. The second paragraph might be like connecting the anecdote to your current passions and why you're applying. That's another island. There, you're not going to be talking about your future goals. That's a separate island. And then the third island might be like your short-term goals. The fourth island might be, which is fourth paragraph, might be your long-term goals. And then segue that into the next island or paragraph, which is why that school. And then the very last paragraph can be sort of like the zoom out view. So, I mean, it's pretty much those 6 topical paragraphs, and you have the essay. So I would complete a rough first draft and then put it down and revisit the whole thing in a few days or a week with fresh eyes. That's important. Be able to have the time and the leisure to put it in a drawer and then look at it again, or not in a drawer, but on a file on the computer. And I like to reverse outline my work. And that's another way of checking to make sure that paragraphs are their own topics or islands. So like, let's say I've already written an essay. I look at each paragraph and I label the side of the paragraph with their topics. So I'm like, oh, what's this paragraph about? And I write the word next to it of what it's about. So like intro anecdote. And then I look at the next paragraph. I'm like, oh, what's this paragraph about? Oh, it's about, like why I'm passionate about this, and so on and so forth. And then I see that way, if anything doesn't belong, if I can take that puzzle piece and put it to where it actually belongs. Oh, I wrote a sentence here about my long-term goals, but it doesn't fit in that paragraph. It actually goes in the long-term goals paragraph. So you can move things around that way when you can strategically label each section. And then it's important to make sure every sentence counts toward your larger thesis and back it up with evidence. Like I think something that I see a lot also is to say, during my internship, I computed, I don't know, let's see. I worked with animals in a shelter, let's say. It's not enough to say animals in a shelter. It's like, well, so what? So always answering the so what, or to why, or what end. I worked with animals in a shelter, and that taught me patience and blah, 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 as I saw, them go through euthanasia when they weren't, when nobody chose them or something. I mean, I'm just giving a bad example, but basically backing every single sentence up. And then go back and create strong transitions and bridges between paragraphs and ideas. So like if paragraphs are islands, you need bridges to get to those islands. So you need seamless transitions. And that's where, the tutor ABC can help you with that as well. So don't get too bogged down, but it's just something to think about, And then do line edits, like perfect your word choices, fix your syntax, your wording. And then I cut at the very end. I do not focus on word count, like I said, until the whole essay is done. I want to make sure all the information is there, and then I trim the fat. And edit, edit, edit. Writing is revision. Literally, the word revision comes from the Latin word revisere, which means to see again. So editing allows you to see the writing again with new eyes. So that's just the cool thing. I think that's important and really pertinent. And then read your essay out loud to catch possible areas of improvement. I think it's like sculpting from stone. So you have this blob, and then you chisel, chisel, chisel until you have a shape. Okay, so we're going to do a sample essay walkthrough now. We'll do a live edit on a paragraph or two, and these are the paragraphs. Okay, so ever since I was young, I've been interested in psychology and how people think. I have always enjoyed reading books about the brain and learning about different theories. When I was in college, I took classes that were very interesting to me, and I decided that I wanted to pursue a graduate degree so I could become a professional in this field. My professors often told me that I was a good student, and I felt confident that graduate school will help me reach my goals. During my undergraduate career, I participated in several extracurricular activities that helped me learn leadership skills and how to work with others. I was also part of a research project which taught me more about how experiments are conducted, okay, et cetera, et cetera. In the end, is all these experiences have prepared me to be successful in your program. So I want you to think, if you're an admissions officer reading 200 essays, would this essay stand out to you? Why? Or why not? Okay. So to me, it wouldn't stand out. And it just, I know it wouldn't, because it has a lot of cliche openings. There's a lot of passive, vague verbs, was interested, participate, was part of, but we don't get any concrete details. A lot of people, when they don't really know why they want to do something, will fall into like, oh, I was interested, I participated, I've done this forever, etc. Because they don't want to get deeper into like the whys of why they're doing it. But that's again why it's really important to be introspective and to think critically before you write the essay. Like, why do I want to do this? Why is this important? And to have those ideas already formulated. And that was just a laundry list of activities. There was no depth to it, no dimension. It could have been written by literally anybody. And the transitions were not good during my undergraduate career. I also, not very artful. And the voice was generic. There's like nothing memorable about it, like I said. What you want to do instead is open with a vivid anecdote, starting with an action. Like if you know the myth of Sisyphus, I don't know if you know this, but it's an existential piece of work. And basically Sisyphus is at the top of the mountain and pushing a rock. And the whole tension is that like the rock could fall down on Sisyphus and roll down the hill and kill Sisyphus and a bunch of other whoever else is on that mountain. So we start the story at the maximum point of tension, meaning like in full action. Okay, use strong verbs, design, organize, led, build, analyze, like active verbs. Show, don't tell, demonstrate qualities through examples. Again, not saying like, oh, I was a good student. Show that you're a good student. Show, don't tell. That segues perfectly to the next one. Like I demonstrate qualities through examples and keep paragraphs topical, like we said. Use transitions that build momentum. That moment sparked. This led me to ... Highlight intellectual curiosity and action. Show how you acted on interests. And let your voice shine. Distinctive phrasing makes you memorable. Okay, so here's a revised version of that previous two paragraphs. On the first day of my internship at a community mental health center, I sat across from a teenager who refused to speak. The silence stretched, but I remember a strategy I'd studied in a cognitive behavioral therapy class. I began drawing on a notepad instead of pressing him with questions. Within minutes, he leaned forward and added his own sketch beside mine. That exchange, small, improvised, but deeply human, reminded me that psychology is not only about theories, but also about listening, adapting, and creating trust. That experience crystallized what I had been building throughout college, a desire to translate research into practice. In my junior year, I designed a study on adolescent stress responses, coding survey data from 120 students. Later, as president of the psychology club, I organized workshops where undergraduates role-played therapeutic techniques, bridging academic concepts with peer learning. These opportunities taught me to move between theory and lived experience, and they reinforced my commitment to pursue graduate training where I can sharpen my research skills while engaging directly with communities. So you might see with this version, we did all of the things that we discussed here with the green check marks. It's more active, there's concrete examples, there's specificity, survey data from 120 students. There's also like poetic language, the silence stretched. And then in each moment, though, it's not just about being poetic or about showing, it's connecting the examples to the bigger picture, which is the narrative of why you care about your field and something that sparked interest in your field. Okay. Here's an example of what I think is a strong completed essay example. I am not going to read it, but if you want to take a few minutes to kind of just skim through it, we can kind of discuss what's working here. Maybe I'll just read the first paragraph and the last one. Growing up with so the question, the prompt for this is, please tell us your reasons for applying to the mental health counseling, bilingual mental health counseling, or school counseling program at Teachers College. This is an actual essay that I worked on with a student years ago. Okay, growing up with a therapist mother, I was raised to learn to lean into discomfort, discuss my feelings, and reflect on my behaviors. In our household, emotions were validated and boundaries were taught as a form of love. That foundation, coupled with the weekly therapy I've pursued for the past 11 years, instilled in me a lifelong commitment to self-reflection and growth. I now want to dedicate my life to empowering others to access the same tools of resilience and self-understanding. And then the next paragraph describes like what the patient did before this to understand why they got to where they were, to the field of psychology. And then the next part, the next paragraph is, I actually want to discuss some of this too, which is, this is a really important paragraph. An education at Teachers College will provide me with the theoretical frameworks, best practices, and experiential learning I need to help people heal holistically. As a counselor, my goal is to help clients strengthen their connection with themselves and others, fostering resilience while holding space for them to grow. I'm especially drawn to working with mothers and children because primary attachments are so profoundly shape who we become and how we contribute to society. Courses such as personality development and socialization across the lifespan will deepen my understanding of developmental psychology, while fieldwork and practicum placements will allow me to apply this knowledge in meaningful real-world contexts. So what's going on here, I'm going to break it down for you, is like the first sentence of that, an education will provide me, it's like being concrete about exactly what an education at Teachers College will provide the student with. So it's not like this super specific thing. It starts with kind of a rainbow sentence, which is like an overarching sentence, theoretical frameworks, best practices, experiential learning, and holistic learning. And then the next sentence ties the student's goal directly with the first sentence. It's like, oh, here's what I want to do as a counselor. And then it specifies the student's goal a little bit more. It's like, oh no, I want to work with children and mothers. And here's why. It's not enough to say like, I just want to work with mothers and children. It's, well, why? Well, because primary attachments shape who we are, how we show up. And then I'm going to connect that to a course that's actually offered at Teachers College. So I always write down like 5 courses I would want to take at that school and why. And like, what is it about that program that's unique and why? And okay, I'm not going to read this, but basically the first paragraph in this part of the essay is like why the person studied nursing before this, and then why they're drawn to Teachers College again. Like, I'm drawn in Teachers College in part because of its integration of social justice into every aspect of the curriculum. Its ethos mirrors my own belief that to practice responsibly, one must continually investigate the ways privilege and power shape care. So admissions committees love that kind of stuff. For the most part, they are pretty progressively minded people, for the most part. Not every school, of course. You have to do your research. But this is something that whatever political side you're on, which I know people kind of can worry about that because right now there's a lot of political divide in the world. But whatever political side like the admissions person is on, everyone agrees with practicing responsibly. And everyone agrees with investigating the ways privilege and power shape care. Like, it's just something that people kind of ubiquitously, it shows that you're thoughtful about the field and that you've zoomed out of the field and into the larger aspect of social justice. And then it discusses, the next paragraph discusses social justice and like the status quo, and then brings an actual moment in history. The status quo is COVID-19. During COVID-19 disproportionately affected minority groups, et cetera, et cetera. So then it kind of brings like a specific moment that describes the injustice. And then it goes back again to why the student wants to pursue this. The brutality of inequality currently roils communities in a more visible way than ever before. And all the while I watch what's happening and wonder, where is the mental health care in all this? How are we as a society approaching the needs in a multiculturally competent way? I want to do everything in my power as a therapist to change the status quo that should have never been the status quo. I have no doubt that Teachers College will help me do this through a curriculum that investigates power, race, oppression, and privilege, because Teachers College does have that module, the student research, and they have power, race, oppression, and privilege as a requirement. So they brought that knowledge in. They were like, oh, I'm going to tie that into my mission and the school's mission. And through opportunities like the annual Winter Roundtable, it is clear that Teachers College implements a pedagogy that seeks to foster a more just society, a mission that aligns directly with my own, et cetera, et cetera. So it's really important to research the school and bring specific examples. Okay, so here's the million-dollar question. Can't I just use AI? And, you know, I use AI for certain things, and I understand it's a very time-saving tool. And again, it's a tool, but it shouldn't replace your creativity and authenticity. This is something that I've literally trained AI systems, like Google's AI systems, to become more creative, but it's just not there. And I don't think it'll ever be there because of the lack of soul. So admissions committees aren't just looking for like the most polished essay. They're really looking for authenticity and creativity. So they like a little bit of irregularity, and they can kind of tell, like they are building techniques now. There's a lot of techniques that are in process that detects AI. And it's because there's like uniformity of phrasing, there's catch phrasing. So I'd be really careful, because admissions committees like automatically disqualify you if they know you've used AI. So the best thing is to really just write and be imperfect, and then rely on editors to help you make it, you know, sound more polished, but still have your heart and soul and imperfections in it. It's really not just about producing the most perfect or compelling narrative, but it's about also the self-discovery process, because so much of it requires you to think critically. Like you saw how that Teachers College student thought very critically about what they wanted to do. They kind of did an inner excavation. It wasn't like something that AI could do for them, right? It's because they really thought about what they wanted to do and why. And losing out on that like cheats you out of the process. Okay, so AI can strip more than soul. Beyond losing heart, it can damage the essay in following ways. I'm not trying to be preachy, but it's just something that I think about a lot, because I am in this field and I also am in the AI field. So I feel like I have one foot in each field. So it can introduce contradictions or factual errors. I wrote my friend a few weeks ago and I was like, oh my goodness, Caprice, I can't believe that you won this award. It's amazing. Blah, blah, blah. And she told me, and there's like one person in the world with her name. She said, no, I never won that award. I've never even heard of it. So the AI, I had asked it, tell me about my friend. I gave the Caprice and then her last name. And it just hallucinated an answer. And if I just plopped that answer into it without checking or whatever, then I would have been very wrong, right? Because I was wrong. So that was embarrassing. But yeah, it can replace vivid details with generic phrasing. It can flatten emotion into like a buzzword soup. It can be like, oh, I want to use buzzwords. It can over polish the grammar and sound robotic. And it can mix tones in an unnatural way, like formal and casual tones. It could also add cliches like lifelong passion, commitment to excellence, etc. Which, like, if you have a couple cliches, it's fine. But when it becomes kind of laden with cliches, that's a problem. So here's something that AI actually edited for me that I thought made it much worse. So this was an essay, or a line from an essay from a student for, I think, being a doctor. So it seemed to me that my mother was a wizard with the way she helped heal people. That was the anecdote, one piece of the anecdote. The AI rewrite was, I quickly recognized the important role that medical guidance plays in patient outcomes. It really took away everything. It like took away all the heart and soul of that person's story with the mother. And so what's lost is childlike wonder for bureaucratic summary, human metaphor for generic abstraction, memorable phrasing for forgettable language. And there's different like program fit lines. I value your program's focus on clinical experience. It might also sometimes like a student will be like, I'm applying to Harvard. Here's the prompt. And they get X amount of students doing that, and they will generate the same sentences for different students. And like, even if 2 sentences are the same, if you do like Turnitin, it can show up. So I would just, it's my cautionary tale against that. And also provide emotion without evidence and missing local or sensory details like small anchors. And again, a few other things like overly uniform sentences, no natural slips. It's completely weird for a person, whether a native speaker or a foreign speaker, to not have any natural slips. It's bound to happen. And it's a good thing when it happens. It shows that you're a person, not a robot. And inflated formal transitions, especially if you are not a native speaker, you may not know how to re-edit AI the way, like, into what sound, what would be more natural too. So just something to really think about. There's tone mismatch, recycled buzzwords, and like professional but soulless phrasing again. Okay, so now I'm gonna take a second because I need to take a sip of water and breathe. But we're gonna dive into the supplemental essays, which is a really important part of this whole application process. I like talking, but this is a lot of talking. Okay. Here's some do's and don'ts of supplemental essays. Do's. Use this as an opportunity to show a different angle of yourself and deepen insight. It shouldn't be recycling the same thing that your statement of purpose said, essentially. Your research. Said it before and I'll say it again. It shows, like I said before, Reddit, subreddit boards, talking to friends, family members, friends of family members. Find out more about the school. If possible, arrange a visit or just like have a point of contact in that school, at that school. Program specific fit, as I showed you in the example. Mention specific offerings and how and why you would utilize them. Be specific. Bring a fresh perspective. Okay, admissions committees love interdisciplinary paths. So if you say, oh, I'm studying real estate, but I'm also studying machine learning. I want to understand the role of machine learning in real estate. They love that kind of stuff because you're not just utilizing one part of the school, you're utilizing another part of the school. And it shows that you are somebody who works in, you have the ability to do systems thinking, and they want to promote that kind of person. They like when people can connect the dots between 2 seemingly unrelated fields. And kind of like create a new angle for that field. Even doctors, I've noticed a lot of people, like a lot of schools, like when doctors also have an interest in something seemingly completely unrelated, like literature. But then the doctor says, well, I've learned a lot about human empathy and bedside manner through literature. So I'm interested in how literature can inform doctors' behavior or something like that. I'm making these up, but like that kind of thinking. Research a school's new offerings connected to your subject area. So some schools, like right now, machine learning is a big thing. So maybe they have a new center and they've put millions of dollars into that center. If you mention that center, it's going to give you big brownie points. It's going to show that you're A, paying attention, and B, that you are going to like invest in something they've invested real money in. So I remember many years ago, at NYU when I was working there, I was working at College of Arts and Sciences and also NYU Stern. And at NYU Stern, they had built this Leslie E lab, like entrepreneurial lab. And they wanted students to know about it. Like they really were so excited when anybody knew anything about it. because it was one of the first of its kind. Okay, so research this, tie in your pursuit to something larger. We've kind of hit this over the head many times, but the potential for AI to promote social good, for example. Saying after everything I just said, but people are thinking about that too. And then don'ts. Do not repeat what you wrote in your main essay. Do not write in vague terms or generalities. Anchor everything in specificity. Well, don't let the short word count fool you. Like I said, supplements require a thought. I think I would venture to say maybe more thought than your statement of purpose, actually. And do not use cliches whenever possible. Like, I've always wanted to make a difference. And don't ignore the prompt. That's a big one. A lot of people answer a different question. I don't know why, but it's just, again, it's like back to being in elementary school. Read the question and answer the question. Okay. So just the same way that we talked about essay prompts for the SOP, here are some essay prompts for supplemental essays. How will the program help you achieve your short and long-term career goals? What do you understand the role of nursing or whatever subject you are to be, and how prepared are you to pursue this role? Use this space to share something you'd like the admissions committee to know about you, your interest, background, identity, or community, and how it has shaped what you want to get out of your graduate school experience. That shouldn't be a question, by the way. That's a period, but it is a question, a prompt. Why do you want to pursue this field of study, and why now? What specific problem, question, or issue motivates your interest in graduate education? Describe a time you faced a challenge. How did you handle it, and what did you learn? What role do you see yourself playing in advancing equity or social justice within your field? These are all real questions. Okay. Here's some additional steps. If a school is your top choice, tell them, and tell them why. I would say, Johns Hopkins University is my top choice because it has a world-renowned program for excellence of nursing, et cetera, and describe why. And then if there's an optional essay to explain any hardships or academic issues, use the space wisely. Own whatever blemishes you may have had and discuss how you have grown from that experience and why you're in a different place now. And then importantly, I didn't put this in the slides, but with interviews, it's my number one piece of advice, other than be prepared and know your stuff, is make the interviewer feel comfortable and like be someone they would want to get coffee with. I know that sounds really kind of ridiculous, but they interview so many people. And when you interview a lot of people, the last thing you want to feel is like somebody else's anxiety and nervousness. So just like breathe, relax, and kind of remember that they need you as much as you need them in that moment. So yeah, I think that's a really key thing, is just to be yourself, be relaxed, and make that person feel at ease, and ask questions. People really love talking about themselves, and often they've done studies that like the more you kind of ask about them, the better they feel about you. All right, so here are the key takeaways from this presentation. I'm going to summarize them and take a sip first. Okay. Root your essay in genuine motivation and passion. Tell a story, again, not a resume. Admissions essays are narrative packages that answer why you, why now, why here. Your story is the heart of your application, so take time to develop your story. Use the pre-writing strategies. Show authenticity through specific examples. So again, my process is just being able to like answer those prompts, why you, why now, why here, or some of the other prompts I listed before, and writing for 10, 15 minutes, and then reverse outlining and then polishing from there. Show rather than tell. Use vivid anecdotes and avoid cliches or generic program fit lines. Highlight concrete experiences and growth. Align your goals with the program's values and offerings. Think forward. Share your long-term vision and contribution. Committees look for more than credentials. They want fit, preparation, resilience, contribution, and clear long-term vision. The writing process is part of the journey. Brainstorm, draft, revise, and reflect. Editing is where clarity and voice emerge. And luckily you have the help of Tutor ABC and editors there and tutors there to be able to help you with the other, like the more final steps. But the brainstorming is something that you can do first. And then that way, when you get to the point of editing, you'll have a piece that is closer to where you want it to be. AI is a tool, not a shortcut. It can't replace authenticity or introspection. And supplements are opportunities, not afterthoughts. And that's it. I just thank you. It's been a pleasure reviewing these materials with you. And I hope this webinar has been helpful and not overwhelming. If there are any questions, please let me know.
Thank you so much, Naomi. I absolutely love today's webinars and sharing so much wonderful, insightful tips. I'm sure today's students definitely will take away some very helpful and valuable tips. Does anyone have any questions for Naomi in terms of the essays that you're working on or anything that you want to ask? 今天的 webinar 主要大概内容是先结束了。各位同学有没有想要对 Naomi 老师有一些提问？可能关于任何写作上的问题 ，essay 的。
You don't have to be shy.
Or just early in the morning on Saturday time. It's lunchtime now.
Oh, well, I understand what it's like to be hungry.
好，如果大家都没有问题的话，那我们今天就先到这边。Again, thank you so much, Naomi. This is so wonderful, and then we'll share the slides with the students later on.
Yeah, I think if you have the slides, then that's a good way to kind of go through the information bite size, without necessarily having it all in one go. So
definitely. So thank you and stay up so late for us for the.
Oh, of course. I mean, anything for you.
All right. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Okay. Have a great day.
Have a great day. Have a good night.
Bye.
Bye.
Hi again. I'm just gonna say bye to you. I think they all left the
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, thank you so much. I hope it wasn't so much stuff to.
It was good. I actually love it. I listened to the whole thing. Yeah, I think that it's just the fact that because Taiwanese students are so shy, I knew they won't interact that much because we have done this a few times all the same way.
No,
But
and I understand it's true.
yeah.
And that's what makes it kind of hard to even write the essays for a lot of I find my independent East Asian students, especially, or Southeast Asian, it's there's not in the curriculum of essay writing and stuff, there's not this thing of personal voice, right?
Yeah.
It's almost the collective is so important that the personal is not as pronounced. It's not really, you're not thinking why, what's my story? And why am I important or whatever it is. So it's tricky. And that's why